In today's tutorial, we're going to go through how to add 3D animated text to your After Effects composition. So we've got a project open here in Adobe After Effects, and we've got some assets that we've imported here, and this is some footage. And this is actually the 10-second time lapse that we did in a previous tutorial where we turned a series of images into a movie, a time-lapse movie. And so we're going to just drag this into the timeline on our After Effects project here. And this will create a new composition titled LTO TL 10 seconds here. And so we'll right click on this just real quickly, just take a look at the composition settings here. And you can see that this is a 1080 by 1080p movie with 24 frames per second, and it has a duration of about 10 seconds. So we'll hit OK there. And so we could go ahead and preview this by hitting the space bar. And you can see that this is the time-lapse movie of the stars rotating over the Little Thompson Observatory in Berthoud, Colorado. And so what we'd like to do is add some 3D animated text to this, and we'll also add some music, and we'll also do a layering, a matted layer to give the text even more depth. So we'll start out by choosing what our text is going to say, and so we'll create a new text layer here. And so I'm going to go up here to the menu bar and choose the text tool, and then I will click onto my composition window here, and I'm going to choose a typeface over here in the character panel. I'm going to scroll through here, and I'm going to choose Euro style. And we're going to also make this bold. And on our size, we're going to change this from 525 pixels. As I clicked on the text size selector here, and I'm going to make this 360 pixels. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and type my type, and so I'm going to type the word science. And I'm holding down the cap key because I just want to. And you'll notice that my color here is yellow, and I could change that to another color if I wanted to. Whoops, let's see, I missed a character there. Okay, so now we have science writ large here. And so I'm going to position this about here in my composition. And I like yellow just because it's a nice complementary color to the kind of the dark blue of the sky here. And so we'll just go with that for now. And so now we want to take this text and we want to make it an animated 3D text. And so one of the things that we can do is that we can go to our Effects and Presets panel over here on the right-hand side of After Effects. And if we go to the panel menu, which is the three horizontal lines there for this particular panel, and so all the panels have this menu, and so this is contextual to what we want to actually do in this panel. So one of the things that we can do is if I right-click, click on this panel menu, is that we have several selections here, and one of those is to browse presets. So we can use Adobe Bridge to actually browse the presets of these animated text here. And so there's a bunch of other effects, backgrounds, and things like that we could browse within After Effects in the presets, but we're going to concentrate on text here. So I'm going to open the text folder here, and I'm going to open the 3D text folder. And so by going down here, I can scroll along, and I can look at some of these various text animations here. And so the text animation that I like for this particular composition is called 3D Random Spike Tumble. So I'll just click on that, and so we can kind of preview that up here in this kind of preview panel. So once I know which effect that I want to use, is I can go ahead and close out of Adobe Bridge. And now I'm going to go into my Effects and Presets panel here and select Animation Presets. Go down and select Text and 3D Text, and then I will scroll down and find my effect, the 3D Random Spike, and so Spike Tumble. And so once I've found that effect here, is I'm going to take that effect and I'm just going to drag that onto the text layer. Okay, and so now that turns that text layer into a wireframe that lets us know that this is 3D text. And so now we're going to do some transformation to that. And so if we go down here to our text layer here and click on the disclosure triangle, and we can see that we have the transform menu here as well. And so I'm going to click that disclosure triangle to open up the transform for this particular text layer. And so you'll notice that this is 3D text because we have X, Y, and Z rotation available to us. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this text slightly in the Y-axis. So I'm going to just click on the settings here, and I could type in this setting as well, but I can also just click down and use the scrubby, or where you can scrub left or right to do our rotation here. And so I'm going to take this at about a minus 45-degree angle. And so now this text will appear to go towards the background in our image. And so I can go ahead and preview that for you. And so we'll hit our space bar, and you can see that that text animates on, and then also appears to be perspective into the background. So we like this animation, and so if I play this back again, of course, is that you can see that that animation happens over a 2-second period. And that's a little bit fast for our animation here. And also it's starting at the very beginning of our composition. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to just shorten the back end of this so it gives me some room to scroll with it. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to move this up to where it starts about 2 seconds into the composition. So we just have a couple seconds before that animation starts. And then I can go ahead and drag that out to the end of our composition here. And so also you'll notice that there are 2 keyframe indicators here that tell you the duration of the animation. And so you can see here that now we'll go ahead and do a playback again. And so we have 2 seconds of the time lapse, and then our text animates on. So if we wanted to lengthen that time that animates, is that we can adjust these keyframes. So if I come down up here, I'm going to close my transform tab here, and I'm going to open up text here, and you'll see that we have the animator 1, which is the actual animator that is being used on this text to give it that spiked fly-in effect. So what I can do is I can look at these two keyframes here, and so I'm going to look at the range selector 1 here. I'm going to click on that arrow to open that up there, and now you can see that in the offset is that we have some keyframes set here. And so if I want to take this keyframe and extend this out, I can just take that keyframe and I'm just going to drag that to the 5-second mark on our timeline. So now that text animates in over a 3-second period. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and close all the triangles here to collapse that layer so that we just kind of keep our timeline nice and neat. So so we could just stop right here and we would have a nice little animated text come on. But I would like to kind of take it to the next level. So I think it'd be fun to add an exclamation point to the science there, in the great Thomas Dolby tradition, so we could say science. And so I'm going to create a new text layer. And again, I'm got my character panel. I'm still using Eurostyle Bold and 360 pix, so it's the same size. And I'll click onto my composition here, and then I'll type in a exclamation point. And I'll just select that text real quickly so that I can reposition it to where I like it there. And you'll notice that this is just flat. It's not 3D like the rest of our text here. So I can actually turn this into 3D text here. If I go into my text animator here, and I can go enable per character 3D. So once I've enabled that, I can use the transform to do, again, my -45-degree text rotation so that that matches the rest of my text there in the perspective line. And I could also do position and some of these other things, but I kind of like that just how it is, how it kind of sticks out there. And so now we've added an exclamation point here. And so we'll take a look at that. And if I look at that text layer, okay, so one of the problems we have here is this is starting out immediately, of course. And so what we want to do is have this pop on at the 6-second mark. So I'm going to drag the end of this down here so that I have some room to scroll along with this. And I may have to even do a little bit more of trimming the end of the text layer here. And I'm just going to bring that on at the 6-second mark, and then I'll drag that out to the end of our work area. So now if we preview this, we come through, our text flies on, and then an exclamation point for my science. Okay, and so that's going to repeat. So we're going to go ahead and import our audio asset at this point, and we'll take a look at that. And so I'm going to go to import. I'm going to choose an audio asset that I'd already selected. And this is some royalty-free music from our music library. And so this is a piece called Spider. And so I can just drag this down underneath to the bottom layer here. And there's no real reason to do that, but just for me, it kind of makes for a neater timeline, and I kind of like that. And so if I click on the triangle here, my audio triangle here, I can show the waveform. And so that gives us kind of a visual cue to how the music goes here. So let's take a quick listen. And so we like that, and I can go ahead and I can mute that at this point, just because I don't want it to interfere with my next thing that I'm going to do. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to collapse all my layers now, and so I want to add a matted copy of the observatory here. And we're going to put this in front of the text, so the text appears to go behind the observatory. So I'm just going to minimize Adobe After Effects, and I'm going into my project folder here, and I have some graphic sources. And so here I've already done a PSD file, but I'll go ahead and go through the process with you as far as doing this as JPEG. So from the original JPEG, which was the first image from our time lapse, is that we'll go ahead and open this with Adobe Photoshop CC 2017. And I'll close out of those tools there. And you can see that we have a rather large image here. So I'm just going to take my background layer here and click on the background layer, and I'm going to do Command J to duplicate that layer, because I prefer to work with and keep the original background layer available in this PSD. So now all we want to do is make a matte, and so we're going to matte out the observatory from the background so that we can basically cut that out. And so I'm just going to use my quick selection tool here, and I'll simply just paint around the edge of the building here and make a selection. And now I'll turn this selection into a matte by selecting my layer mask here. And so now you see that we have the observatory building cut out from the background. I could save that out as a PSD, which I probably should, but just for expediency, for the purposes of this tutorial, is I'm going to go up here to the File menu. I'm going to go to Export and go to Export As. And so I'm going to change my format from JPEG to PNG, which will allow me to send this out as a transparent matted image that I can use in After Effects. I'm also going to change the width of this to be 1920 so that it matches the width of my After Effects composition that I've created. Once I've selected that width there, that will change the canvas size to 1920 by 1440. And I will hit Export All. And I'm going to go to my Graphic Exports folder, and I'm simply going to overwrite the PNG that I created there before. And I could save that as a PSD, but I've already done that, so I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to go ahead and hit Don't Save and close out of Photoshop here. Now I'm going to go back to my After Effects project here, and now I'll import that file. So I'll go to my Graphic Exports, and I'll open the LTO PNG. Now I'll take that PNG and just drag that onto the timeline. As a new layer above our original layer. And you can see that we do have to do some positioning here. So I'm going to come down here to my transform, and I'm actually going to scale this up. And so I'm making sure that my lock icon is there, and I'm going to scale this up to about 110%. So I'm going to make it slightly larger than the original observatory, just so that it kind of covers it up. And then I'm just going to use my position controls here and take this and put it into a position where it overlaps the original observatory. So once I've got that in position, we'll take a look at it. And you can see now the science appears to go behind the observatory. And so I want to go ahead and just lower that down just a little bit so that I can make sure that I can get my see the dot in the exclamation point here. And so I'll try first to lower the observatory a little bit there and make sure that I don't see the original one. There we go. Now we'll go ahead and do a playback. And there we go. All right, so we're happy with this, and the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and render the composition. And so I'm going to do an add to the Adobe Media Encoder queue so that I can continue to work in After Effects or Premiere if I want, and have the media encoder working in the background to render out my project. Eventually, media encoder will launch, and it will queue up our After Effects project here. And I'm going to encode this as a YouTube compatible 1080p HD MP4 file. And then I'm going to click on the output here to put this into my exported files folder here. So we're going to make this we're going to replace the one that's already there that I've done previously, and we'll hit encode there on the green arrow there. Once our project is rendered out, we can double click on the output file here, and we can double click on that. And I'm going to go to view full screen here, fit to screen, and we'll just go ahead and play this movie. Science. And that's how we add 3D animated text to our After Effects composition.